Hey everyone, welcome back. For those of you who are new here, my name is Brittany. I'm a health coach and nutritionist, and on my channel we usually do low FODMAP recipe tutorials geared towards helping people with IBS manage their symptoms. We haven't done that in a while on this channel, but I've been a little busy. And I've actually had a little bit of a sweet tooth more than usual, and for some reason been in the mood for baking. So I thought today we could do a chocolate chip cookie recipe that I recently perfected for the holidays. So this isn't going to be a like a traditional like sugar cookie, like, you know, shaped like a Christmas tree with frosting. That's just like not my jam. I'm not into that kind of cookie. Today we're going to be doing a salted dark chocolate chip with brown butter and tahini. So like I said, I don't have a huge sweet tooth. If you guys remember from my chocolate mug cake video, that like salted dark chocolate is just like my thing. I love it. So, and that's because, like I said, I don't really have like that big of a sweet tooth, but like the dark chocolate to me is like the bitterness helps to balance out the sweetness, and then again the nuttiness from the tahini and the brown butter again like helps to balance out the sweetness. So that's what we're going to be making today. Okay, and of course these are gluten-free. Okay, so let's start by measuring out our dry ingredients before we go over to the stove and brown our butter. Okay, so we're gonna be using a 1/4 cup of white sugar and then 3/4 of a cup of brown sugar. And I do like to split up the, like if a recipe calls for all brown sugar, I will usually cut it with a little bit of white sugar instead. And that makes it lower FODMAP, and that is because brown sugar is just a mix of white sugar and molasses. Molasses being high FODMAP. So if we cut it with white sugar, then like we're having like less molasses overall. And again, I will always choose light brown sugar if I have a choice, because again, less molasses. And for those of you who don't know, white sugar is considered the lowest FODMAP because it is an even 1-to-1 ratio of glucose to fructose. So when you have too much fructose, then it is hard to digest and or like hard to absorb, I should say. At least for me, like I have a really hard time with fructose. So this is what I like to do. So that's a 1/4 cup of white sugar, 3/4 cups of brown sugar. And again, of course, I will have the recipe linked on my website, and you can find the link in the description below. So to that, we're going to do 1/2 teaspoon of salt, a teaspoon of vanilla, and 1/2 cup of tahini. So this is just, it's sesame seeds that have been ground into a paste. It's what they use to give hummus like that distinct flavor. And I really like using this because, like I said, it gives it like a nice like nutty flavor. And this is great too if you have a nut allergy, but you are like missing that sort of like nutty flavor, I guess. This stuff is like kind of hard to work with because it gets like really solid at the bottom and like liquidy on the top. So you want to make sure you go in and like stir it first. Okay. And then last thing we're going to add to this is 2 tablespoons of butter, but we're not going to mix everything together first. We're just going to add this in there, and then we're going to go brown our butter, and then we're going to mix it all together when it's browned. You might want to measure. I've gotten pretty good at eyeballing tablespoons of butter. Okay, we'll come back and do this part afterwards. So now for our browned butter, it's going to take a full stick of butter, which is 8 tablespoons. This one is 16, so I'm just going to cut it in half. Ugh. Okay. All right, so now let's go over to the stove and I'll show you how to brown this. All right. All right, guys, we are going to melt this butter over medium to low heat, and it's going to take about 3 to 4 minutes for it to fully melt and then brown. Now, I know you're going to be tempted to just start on a high heat and get this done quicker, but don't do that. You will scorch your butter and it will not taste the same. So just be patient. Okay, you guys hear that? You see that? Now that our butter is all the way melted, it's going to start to bubble like this, and you'll see that it starts to clarify in a way. It's going to start to change the color. It's going to get darker and browner, and it's also going to start to give off a nutty aroma, similar to when we make a roux for when we're making gravy and stuff like that. Ooh, okay. Turn the heat down just a little bit. I don't want you to go too crazy. The first couple of times I did this, I was like, oh my God, what do they mean? Like brown? Like, I don't know. It's like hard when you're reading it in a recipe. I think it's so much easier when you see it, which is why I want to show you guys. So we're not there yet, but we're getting close. Okay, the smell is starting to change. It still smells like butter though, rather than like it being nutty. See, it's starting to get a little bit darker in color. Okay, it's getting close. Make sure you keep an eye on it, because once it turns brown, like it happens really quickly and you don't want to let it burn. Just similar as to when we make a roux. Oh, here we go. See, it's starting to turn brown. Oh, yes. Okay. Now it's starting to smell like that nutty smell. Oh, so good. Okay, it's just going to take a few more seconds. Okay, you see how like golden brown that is in there? Okay, I think this is good enough for me. All right, I'm going to turn off the heat. It's such an amazing smell. Okay. So now we're just going to let this cool for a minute, and then we're going to mix it with our sugar and the other ingredients that we measured out. Okay, so let's go over there and do that. Okay, so here's our brown butter. It's cooled for a minute while we moved everything back around, and we're just going to pour this into this mixture. So we want to let it cool a tiny bit so it doesn't like scald our sugar. But the heat from this is going to help everything combine. So now we're just going to use our wooden spoon to get everything well combined. The warm butter really makes that tahini much easier to work with. Oh my God, it smells so good already. So we just want to keep mixing until all the lumps are gone. So we still have quite a few lumps in here. So I'm gonna keep going. So why not just use an electric mixer? I think that would just be too much, and you might actually start like forming this into like, I don't know, like a frosting or something. I don't know. You don't want to do that. Okay. So now that we have this all incorporated. Okay, so now we come to kind of a weird part of this recipe. That's good. So we're gonna add 1 egg and 1 egg yolk. So the sugar has cooled the butter down enough so we don't have to worry about our egg getting cooked when we put it in there. These are room temperature eggs though. Okay, and then this one, I'm just gonna catch the yolk. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we are gonna whisk this together for 30 seconds, let it rest for 3 minutes, and then repeat that whole process. We're gonna repeat it 4 times. Now, I know this seems like a very weird step and you're just like, is this really necessary? I thought the same thing when I was referencing a bunch of recipes to make this one, because I'm not like practiced in baking and like I've never created a cookie recipe before. And I have tried this both ways, and I do think it gives it something a little extra. So I'm just gonna show you how like doing that process changes the texture. So here I have my phone. I'm just gonna set a little timer. Okay. Oops. Now we're gonna let this sit for 3 minutes. So while that's sitting, let's measure out our flour. So here I have Bob's Red Mill gluten-free 1-to-1 baking flour. What I did though is I bought a 25-pound bag at the beginning of fall, or when the weather finally turned cold. Because like I said, I've been in the mood to bake. And honestly, I'm so glad I did that, because like it's not like a lot cheaper buying in bulk like that, because it is kind of like a specialty product. But it's been really nice not having to like go out to the store every time I run out of gluten-free flour to make bread. So that has been nice. Okay, so we need a 1 1/4 cups of flour. To that, we're also going to be adding 3/4 teaspoon of baking soda. So there's a half and a quarter. It's another item that I buy in bulk because I use it for cleaning as well, and then I just keep it in an old can for the kitchen for cooking. Okay, so let's mix all that together. Here we have the tiny whisk. Okay. Just set that aside. Perfect. Okay, so now we're gonna do another 30 seconds. So I hate this whisk. I don't know why. It's just like not sturdy enough, but I just kind of grab it down here and it helps. All right, so here we go. See how it's just like, I don't know, the texture has just changed as we're adding energy to it, I guess. All right, so now we're gonna let that sit for another 3 minutes. Okay, here we go for round 3. Okay, see how it's starting to turn lighter in color? That's exactly what I was waiting for. So I don't exactly know what's going on here. Like, there is a lot of people that are super into like the science of baking. That's not me. But maybe one day I'll get into it more. So we're gonna let this rest for a few more minutes, like I said, and then we have one more round. So our final 30 seconds. Okay. See how it's become much lighter in color? This is exactly what I wanted to demonstrate for you guys. It's changed in the texture and the color. And that's why I think this is actually worth doing. Can you use an electric mixer? Maybe. I don't know. It might overmix it too much. I haven't tested it out. So this is just the way that I decided to do it. But if you know like what color and what texture you're going for, maybe you could use it, and if you do, let me know how it comes out. Okay, so now we are going to add our flour. Okay, so one of the cool things about gluten-free baking is that since there's no gluten in our flour, we don't have to worry too much about over mixing it and activating the gluten proteins too much, which would make it tough, right? Because there's no gluten. So that is kind of a nice thing. All right, so let's really get in here. Make sure all of that flour is well incorporated into our dough. See how it's got this like crumbly texture? That's what we're going for. I think it gives the cookies a really nice texture when they're cooked, or baked, whatever. All right, get everything off the sides. Okay, now we're gonna add our chocolate chips. So I have these dark chocolate chunks. You could use chips, I just like the chunks. Okay, we are gonna add 1.5 cups. All right, and we're just gonna fold those in. Some very chocolatey. Okay, and that's it. So now we are just going to get these onto a baking sheet and get them in the oven. So let me preheat my oven. We're gonna be cooking these at 375, and let me pull out my baking sheets. Okay, I'm gonna be lining these with parchment paper today. I do prefer the parchment paper because I feel like you end up with a crispier cookie like on the bottom. But if you don't have any, you can totally use foil and then just spray a little like avocado spray on there. I have done that as well. The parchment paper though can be a little unruly. Okay, so now we're going to use a teaspoon to scoop these out and get them on the parchment paper. We're gonna go for 9 cookies per sheet, 18 cookies total. We'll see how that goes. Okay, well we didn't get 18 cookies. I don't know what happened. I also got to level with you guys. This batter looks more oily than it did the last few times that I've made it. So I don't know what happened, but we're just gonna cook them and hope for the best. Like I said, I'm not a baker. Baking is hard, but we'll see what happens. All right, let's pop these into the oven for about 14 to 15 minutes. Okay, and then hopefully they come out all right. Oh. I guess I scooped them too big. Oh my God. I mean, they smell really good though. So let's just let them cool. We have one last thing to do. Oh my God. Okay, so we already have some kosher flake salt. And we're just gonna sprinkle this on. Luckily, I was not planning on taking them off the baking sheet to cool. Because I know some people like to let them cool on a cooling rack, but I like them to cool on the baking sheet because I feel like if I try to take them off, they're just like too molten. And then I put them on the cooling rack and then they get like lines in the bottom. I really don't like that. So yeah, just let these cool for a little while. Try to break them apart. Oh my God. All right, guys, these have been cooling for about 15-20 minutes. Let's see if we can salvage them. They smell really good. Oh, okay, look at that. That wasn't bad. Oh, okay. These ones are stuck together, but that's fine. Okay, not as bad as I thought. Let's try over here. Yeah, these ones might just need to be like cut a little. So while they were cooling, I was thinking about what I did wrong. And the last couple times I made these cookies, I used a different brand of tahini that was like a little bit thicker than this tahini that I used today. So I'm thinking maybe that's what happened. Oh my God, look, they're so gooey and like nice crispy on the edge. And then obviously I just like scooped them to be like too big. Whoa! Wow, look at that. That's beautiful. That's really good. Nice and gooey, but crispy on the edge. I feel like that's exactly what I want out of a cookie. Oh, so good. Obviously it's sweet, it's a cookie, but it's like delicately sweet. It's not overly sweet. Because like I said, we've got the nuttiness from the brown butter and the tahini, and then the dark chocolate, and then the salt on top. Oh, it just really like, it really like brings everything alive. I love it. Oh, all right. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. I know this didn't come out perfectly, but they're still really good. And I think that just be careful on the tahini, I guess, if it's like too oily. Maybe add a little bit less butter to the recipe. I don't know. But I mean, like, they're cookies. I don't think anybody's gonna be mad at a cookie that doesn't come out perfectly, right? So, all right, well, again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you next time.